Hey,
What's going on, guys? It's Fancy Stock Exchange here, bringing you another episode of our weekly rankings episode where myself and Bush hop on and explain the differences or the discrepancies between our own rankings with each other, as well as our own rankings compared to the ECR or expert consensus rankings. So, you guys love this series. You leave a lot of feedback on it. Appreciate it a ton. But before we kick it off, though, Bush, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. The if you can see real close, the November's starting to come in a little bit. I mean, it's November 6th, and it's taking me. I think I shaved November 1st. I mean, you probably shaved this morning, and that's what your facial hair looks like. So, yeah. So my facial hair growth is not doing great. And now, as I'm saying this, I'm going to get ads for beard oil on my Instagram feed. But other than that, I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, good. Yeah, when you're talking about Movember, I was just talking about it this weekend. Just gonna shave everything but the stash and let the stash absolutely thicken out. You know how it is
Yeah,
going all Castro on this shit. But
yeah, we got to go full Tom Selleck out here.
heck yeah, heck yeah. So let's get the crowd what they're waiting for, our rankings. Before we do that, though, hit the intro. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're going to start off with the quarterback position. So on the screen, you'll see both myself and Bush's rankings, and not too many big differences this week with ourselves and ECR. But what's like the biggest one so far that you see compared to yourself and ECR?
I'm actually kind of surprised this was such a big difference between ECR, but I have Kirk Cousins 8 spots higher than ECR, which is kind of shocking to me. I thought they would be kind of on board. Kirk Cousins has been a pretty solid option pretty much since Justin Jefferson started coming along and started getting acclimated to the offense. But I mean, it's a smash matchup. Detroit is a much better matchup than Green Bay was last week. And the only reason Green Bay wasn't a great outing for Kirk Cousins and the Vikings because Dalvin Cook literally did everything himself. So they only had to throw the ball 14 times. This is a smash matchup for the wide receivers, the tight ends. All of these guys in this matchup should eat against the Lions. And the Colts, anemic ass quarterback Philip Rivers just put up a 3-touchdown performance against this team. And the Lions are bad against the run as well. So we could see a big Dalvin Cook game again. But I do think it's not as much of a pass or a run funnel defense as Green Bay was. Like Green Bay is the worst run defense I've ever seen. Like I don't think any defense topped Green Bay's run defense.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's actually crazy what we saw Dalvin Cook absolutely do to them last week. And I could definitely see a big game coming for Kirk Cousins this week. My guy that I actually have is actually going to be on the flip side of that matchup. Now, again, this is all pending if he plays. I understand the aspect that he's on the COVID list. Fully get that. If he doesn't play, don't put him in your lineup. It's plain and simple. But it's going to be Matthew Stafford, who I currently have 7 spots ahead of consensus. I have him as my quarterback 12 on the week. And to be honest, I mean, if he plays, Stafford has a great matchup. I mean, we all know the lack of efficiency, if you will, or the lack of ability on the Vikings pass defense. I mean, they're the 5th most points per game to the quarterback position thus far this year. And I understand that losing Galladay is a huge piece to the offense. I fully get that. But I mean, it's more so going to dampen his overall ceiling because I think his floor is still going to be fine. Again, Marvin Hall and Marvin Jones played fine last week. I do think DeAndre Swift is going to have a bounce back against ultimately a worse defense. And to me, he just has a very safe floor if he does play. Again, COVID pending. Make sure you monitor that. But if he does play, I do think he can give you top 12 type of upside or value, if you will.
I'm actually checking right now what his splits are with and without Kenny Golladay. So just give me 1 second. I got
Go for it.
okay in the last 3 years. Okay, it's about the same actually. He's been pretty comparable when Galladay's been out. But my thing is like, yes, obviously the COVID thing looms, but if Stafford plays, I think he is downgrade. I mentioned this on the Start Sit show. I think without Kenny Golladay in the lineup, he is down a tier. Like when before he was with the Matt Ryan, the way Derek Carr's been playing. Even Kirk Cousins or something like that. I think now he's more in the Teddy Bridgewater, like Drew Lock type range where it's going to take a good matchup. And this is obviously a good matchup, which is why I'm assuming you have him that high.
Yeah.
So I definitely can get on board due to the matchup, but I don't think Stafford is someone that you probably even need to roster, to be honest. And especially in a like a 10-team league or whatever, I think he should be like a waiver wire, like streaming type quarterback.
Oh, in a 10-teamer for sure. Now, if you're a 12-team, you need a streaming option for this week. I do think he can be fine because I think while he doesn't have the highest ceiling, I think his floor is going to be mighty fine if he does play. If you're actually talking about that tier, it's funny that you said that. I do view it this week as like a top type 11 type of tier Matt Ryan's my 11, and I would much rather play him than Matt Stafford at 12. The guys around Matt Stafford right now include, as you mentioned, Drew Lock, Ryan Tannehill, Teddy Bridgewater, Derek Carr. So we're both in the same kind of mindset, but I just have him a little bit ahead of that tier, if you will, or like heading that tier, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
But
yeah, for sure. Another guy I have higher than consensus. You can call me a homer all you want, because it's happy fuck the Saints week, because I hate the New Orleans Saints. I tweeted this out the other day. I was like, there's only 5 people on this earth that I actually hate. It's Marshawn Lattimore, Sean Payton, Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, and Cameron Jordan. They're all in the New Orleans Saints. I hate all 5 of those guys with a passion. Anyway, Chris Godwin is playing in this game. Chris Godwin is pulling a Rondé Barber. In the Super Bowl year, Rondé Barber broke his hand in I think it was like week 7 or something. He had surgery on Monday and practiced in full on Wednesday and played the rest of the season, had like 8 picks that year. So Chris Godwin's pulling a full Rondé Barber. He's going to play in this game with a broken finger. And he was wearing like a claw in practice. I saw some of the Tampa media tweet it out. It was kind of funny, but he's going to be out there and he's tough as nails. So I don't expect him to be out of the game very much. I think he's going to play mostly his entire role. And we all know AB's making his debut as well. Just another weapon for Brady in this matchup. We have Mike Evans still obviously in this game, getting some attention taken off of him with the other 2 guys playing. And then obviously Gronk's there as a red zone option. So like Brady just has this full allotment or assortment of weapons for the first time in a long time where he's had weapons like this. And I think against a top 10 matchup at giving up fantasy points to the quarterback position, which the New Orleans Saints have been, I personally have a tough decision in my main league because I have Deshaun Watson and Tom Brady, currently my QB3 and QB4 on the week. And like, I'm going to start Watson, but I'm probably going to regret it when Brady hangs 4 touchdowns on the Saints.
If it helps you make the decision anymore, I currently have Watson at quarterback 2 and Brady at quarterback 5. So we're both kind of in that area. We love both options.
The thing that's saving me with Watson is that I was looking on Sharp Football Stats has the Jags not only as the number 32 ranked pass defense for fantasy quarterbacks, but they're also the number 32 ranked pass defense in giving up big plays. And if there's anything we know about Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks is that they can make big plays, and that obviously affects Watson too. So I love Watson this week as well, but Tom, it's going to be hard to sit Tom Brady this week.
No, I fully agree. So moving into actually, I had him listed here, but I mean, you had him a little bit higher, so it was your play there. My next, if you will, guy that I'm higher than in terms of my rankings versus consensus, it's going to be Drew Lock, quarterback from the Denver Broncos. I have 4 spots higher than consensus. Talked about it in the waiver show, but it's as gravy a matchup as you could possibly look for a fantasy quarterback. I mean, he does go up against the 32nd ranked Atlanta Falcons defense in terms of giving up points to the quarterback position. I mean, it's just that simple. Noah Fant's coming back fully from injury, and he was kind of a little bit banged up, if you will, last week. Tim Patrick's back. I do think that the Broncos are going to be able to put up points in what I anticipate to be a high-scoring matchup between the Broncos and the Falcons this week. So Drew Lock is my quarterback 13. That may sound shocking because, I mean, you hear the name Drew Lock, you think, okay, maybe like quarterback 18, 19, 20. But no, I actually trust him as a top 14 option this week. Currently, I'm a quarterback 13.
Yeah, and now as I'm looking at this, I'm probably going to move him to 16. I have Teddy Bridgewater currently at 16. I think I would much rather start Drew Lock. And I have Matt Stafford at 17 who might not play. So I could very well have Drew Lock up there at 16. I think the weapons are coming together for the Broncos. Obviously, Cortland Sutton's not there, which kind of sucks. But Jerry Jeudy is starting to get a little bit better. He has flashes. We've all seen it with Jeudy. We saw him moss a guy on fucking Thursday Night Football and stuff. Like he's an incredible player. He's actually, if you told me one receiver is going to be struggling this year, I would not have picked Jeudy as that guy from this receiver class, but he has struggled quite a bit in terms of like some drops and just some like lapses and stuff. But I think this is the time of the season where you could buy a guy like Jerry Jeudy low. And I think towards the back half of the season, which is normal for rookie receivers, what we're seeing right now with the rookie receivers is not normal. Jerry Jeudy is going through is exactly what all rookie receivers probably should be going through, but aren't.
Yeah, no, I fully agree there with you. Just in general, I do think that the Broncos passing offense will start to, I don't want to say heat up because I don't expect them to be like a top 10 type unit, but they're definitely going to start improving because all those young weapons, that young quarterback are going to start getting some more rapport. And I do think down the stretch that they could.
They're just getting healthier too. I think isn't like their team in general is getting healthier because Von Miller's supposed to be back later in this season as well. And like Drew Lock was out for a while. Jerry Jeudy was banged up. Tim Patrick's been out. Noah Fant was out. Like they're like a couple of linemen were out. Like their O-line is good. They have 2 good tight ends. They have Judy, they have Patrick, who's kind of coming along. Like, they have some weapons, and then they have the two backs in the passing game as well. So
Yeah.
I think Drew Lock is actually going to be a half decent quarterback option going forward, which is why I said he's kind of in that Matt Stafford, Teddy Bridgewater range, depending on the matchup. Do you have anyone else that you're higher on, or can we get into the guys that we're lower on?
I have, actually, never mind. The rest of them are lower, so you can take it off with the first guy you're lower on then.
Okay, so I'm just going to breeze through these first two guys who I'm 3 spots lower than consensus on. It's only a matchup-based thing. It's Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray. They're both like top 12 options for me, but the matchups are hard. Miami's been pretty good against the pass, and obviously Kyler Murray's been great on the ground. But I have a feeling people are underestimating the Dolphins defense. They're kind of just looking at it like preseason Dolphins defense. They're actually the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL right now. They're allowing the least amount of points, and a little bit of that is kind of skewed because of the teams that they've played. They played like the Jets and stuff like that. But I still think they're a solid defense, and I don't think the Cardinals are just going to romp and stomp them like 40-7. I think it's going to be a pretty close game. And then Lamar, obviously, against the Colts pass rush, it probably is going to get in his head. It's going to rattle him a little bit. He should be okay from a fantasy perspective. His weapons might not be so much, but I think Lamar is still like a top 12 quarterback. I just don't like, I wouldn't agree with having him like quarterback 9 or something like that, I think is where he is in ECR.
Yeah, like I mentioned that in the live stream, I actually had the decision between Roethlisberger and Lamar Jackson. I'm starting Roethlisberger now. I don't have him as like the quarterback 5 as I did midweek, but still quarterback 9. So he's ahead of Lamar Jackson. They're both currently like 1 spot disparate, if you will, or discrepancy, if you will. Yeah, sorry. I was out of it for a second. And with Kyler Murray, I still do have him at 3, but that's simply due to the rushing floor that he provides.
It's honestly, with Kyler Murray too, there's so many great matchups for the top quarterbacks this week.
Yeah.
Like Russ going against Buffalo, Watson against Jacksonville, Brady against New Orleans, Josh Allen against Seattle. Like, there's just some Aaron Rodgers last night against San Francisco. Like, we've seen some great matchups so far. I bet Aaron Rodgers is like the quarterback 6 on the week. I think we're going to see a couple 35-plus point outings for these quarterbacks this week.
I just want to see if you guys have made it this far in the video. Leave a rip in the chat for me, because on Thursday Night Football, I took the bullet with Jordan Reed, and the guy I was playing against just so happened to have the Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams stack. So,
dude, I played against Richie James in a league.
Oh God!
Like, first of all, who started Richie James? Second of all, why is he putting up 35 points?
Someone mentioned in the live stream. I think we just laughed it off, and then he snapped.
Yeah, I know. No, that's the type of shit that happens on Thursday Night Football. That's why it should never be a thing.
Oh man.
Quickly getting into it, I think you have a couple of these guys as well, so we could probably breeze through these as well. Drew Brees, I have 4 spots lower than consensus. Tough matchup, and he's overall just a low upside guy on a week-over-week basis. I heard this on a Bucks podcast the other day, but Drew Brees has thrown 11 passes past 20 yards this season.
And it's funny because I was actually getting into an argument with a Saints fan about Michael Thomas, because he's like, oh, Michael Thomas is the best receiver in the league. I'm like, dude, he's like fringe top 5 at best. I think he's honestly like 6 or 7. Dude, 31% of his routes last year were slants. 31%. And only, I think it was 15 to 20% of his routes were actually beyond 15 yards of the line of scrimmage.
Yeah. Like, it's a credit to Sean Payton. He's able to work around his quarterback's weaknesses in a way that not a lot of coaches can do. And I can't believe I just said credit to Sean Payton, because I fucking hate Sean Payton. But they're working around his weaknesses. If Jameis Winston was their quarterback right now, they would not be the same offense. Like, Traquan Smith might be like a top 20 receiver for fantasy.
Emmanuel Sanders.
Emmanuel Sanders be involved. Not to mention with Drew Brees too, Taysom Hill low-key could be a big part of this game. Because we've seen last week against the Giants, the Bucs defense struggled against trick plays and like stuff like that. So I have a feeling Sean Payton's going to be like, we're not going to get the check downs and stuff like this on this defense, because our linebackers can run and tackle, and our corners play a lot of press man, right? So like, it's harder to get like 2-yard slants, and Carlton Davis absolutely shut down Michael Thomas last time they played. So I have a feeling Sean Payton's going to be going to the back of the playbook a lot in this game. So we could see a lot of production siphoned away from Drew Brees from Taysom Hill.
For sure. Just one more thing before I mention my guy. Alvin Kamara this year is literally averaging like seven catches per game and 80 receiving yards per game as a running back. Okay.
Oh, it's ridiculous. I saw PFF tweeted out like highest check down rates in the league or something, and Kirk Cousins was number 1. I'm like, this is a lie. This has to be Drew Brees. Like, I don't see how it's not even just Kamara too. When Latavius Murray's in the game, he's catching little dirty swing passes every play. Like, I guess they're not counted as checkdowns then, I guess. if they're the primary read on the play. But man, I swear to God, Drew Brees throws 20 passes like at the line of scrimmage per game.
Yeah, no, I fully agree there. So, anyways, off of Drew Brees, hopefully the Bucs smash them on Sunday Night Football. But we're going to talk about Cam Newton. I have 4 spots lower than consensus, and I get it. I mean, you just want to rank him higher because it's Cam Newton. He's always going to have that rushing floor. I understand that. But, man, between his recent struggles and, in my opinion, what figures to be such a smash run matchup for the Pats, I mean, heck, they're going up against the Jets. I do think this is just an overall rebound for the Pats offense. I think this can be, I don't want to say low scoring, but I mean, I think the Patriots are just going to get on them early, going to go up like 14-0, and just going to absolutely grind the fuck out of the Jets.
Freaking disgusting game
this
is.
I know. I know. And if you're talking about it, I mean, his overall time frame, in my opinion, to really rack up fantasy points is going to be in the first 15 to 20 minutes of the game, because realistically, by then,
I'm not sure this game isn't close, man.
Really?
Yes.
I think this is the bounce back for the Pats because they're coming off a 4-game losing streak.
I bet they win the game, but I don't think this is going to be a blowout.
No, I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I can see it being like 17-7, 20-7, something like that, where like the final score or the overall outcome wasn't really in doubt, but the final score isn't like too crazy, if you will. I don't know. Yeah. It's just going to be such a gross fucking game to watch. And realistically, Cam Newton has just not been a good quarterback these last 4 weeks. So, yeah, I mean, it sucks because you want to rank him in that top 8. But
we'll have to see how he bounces back, because if he's got any ounce of pride, which I believe he does, knowing his personality, I think he's going to come out and try and torch these guys. And I could see him having a good game. I have him a bit higher than you. I am a little lower on him compared to consensus, but I think he's still usable. I personally would start Cam Newton over Drew Lock. I know you probably disagree with that.
Yeah.
I would start because the Jets have been very bad against the pass, and they've actually been pretty bad against rushing quarterbacks as well, which was something I found researching for the Start Sit show. One last guy I want to talk about real quick is Daniel Jones. I have him 4 spots lower than consensus. He's been solid in tough matchups so far this year. Against Washington the first time and against Tampa Bay last week, he actually had pretty good games, but he needed big runs in a lot of those tough matchups that he was in to be good especially against Washington the first time. I believe he had like a 60-yard run in that game. I don't anticipate a huge ceiling for him this week because, I mean, this is the best defense in the NFL against wide receivers. So I don't think Darius Slayton is getting much done. I don't think Sterling Shepard's getting much done. We basically are relying on Evan Ingram, and that's never a smart idea.
Yeah, no, we'll get into Evan Ingram a little later on, but I fully agree with you there on Daniel Jones. I am a good amount lower than him in terms of consensus as well. So anyways, let's get off these scrummy quarterbacks and let's talk about some running backs. And actually, we'll show you on the screen our top running backs, excluding the top 7. If you want to hear anything about the top 7, just leave it in the start or like in the freaking live stream.
Yeah, the reason we did that is so you could see it better. I noticed when I was rewatching one of the videos, it's hard to see our rankings. So they are available on the fantasystockexchange.com. Mine are posted. I believe Danny's should be as well.
Yeah.
But we excluded the top 7 guys like Josh Jacobs, James Robinson, like Christian McCaffrey, like you start those guys. Like
Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, exactly. So on the screen you'll see them obviously. But the first guy I want to get into, and this one's probably going to change in terms of how much higher or lower I am on him than consensus because of the recent news that occurred that caused me to raise him, and that's Carson and Hyde are both out for the Seahawks. So I have DJ Dallas 13 spots higher than consensus. I currently have him as my running back 16. So I would start him over a guy like J.K. Dobbins. I would start him over a guy like Ronald Jones. Like any one of those guys that's kind of like a fringe starter, I would start DJ Dallas ahead of him. I know there was like a sleeper alert that came out that said Pete Carroll trusts Alex Collins or something like that, who they just signed, which kind of scares me a little bit because Pete Carroll is just kind of a wild card. But Dallas had 23 opportunities last week. He had 79% of the snaps and all the red zone work. Do I think he's going to have that kind of usage again? Probably not. He'll probably be in like the 65 snap share range, maybe has like 18 opportunities, but this should be a high scoring game. The Bills are going to put up points, as are the Seahawks. So you want a piece of this game. And if DJ Dallas is alone, quote unquote, in this backfield, then you want him in your lineup because he has a good chance to fall into the end zone for 2 more touchdowns again.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I actually, call me Gutty. I have DJ Dallas 14 spots higher than consensus as my RB 15 on the week.
Did you just have to one-up me? Is that why you put them at
okay, but I'll mention the 2 guys I have them over a little bit later on, a la David Montgomery and Melvin Gordon. I'll talk about them later. But yeah, I fully agree and echo the points that you made about Dallas. I mean, when Carson and Hyde were out last week, we did see the usage. Now, I get the report of Alex Collins, but realistically, how much of a role should he have coming off?
Oh,
the
he probably
practice
won't
squad?
have that much of a role, but it just seemed like
Yeah,
a very like it
weird
just made
thing.
me cringe a little bit.
Yeah, like I understand that. Like again, if Alex Collins ends up out producing DJ Dallas, I'll bite the bullet on that. But realistically, from my perspective, like DJ Dallas has been involved with the team throughout the season. They're not
The
just going to
passing
demote
game
him for.
usage is the big thing for Dallas
Yeah,
because this should be a game that, like, first of all, the Seahawks, they're not a running team anymore. They throw the ball on first down at the second highest rate in the league.
love
So
that.
the pass catching running back on this team is more valuable than it's ever been, and that's Dallas if Collins plays
Yeah, no,
a decent role.
I fully agree there. Now I'm going to go into my first guy, and this guy I've been echoing all week. You guys saw on Thursday Night Live stream, but man, I love Justin Jackson this week. Like, I love Justin Jackson this week. I mean, give me all the hate you want if this one busts. It just won't. I mean, Justin Jackson, bold prediction right now, is the top 10 running back week this week. I mean, yeah, you're going to go over it as well. I know, but I mean, like, give me all the J-Jacks I can possibly get. The Raiders are a bottom 5 team versus opposing running backs. And Justin Jackson in 2 of the last 3 games has had 20-plus opportunities in those games. And he's just looked like such a much better player than what Josh Kelly has actually showcased. So if you're looking at it, I mentioned that they're bottom 5 and giving up points to the running back position. But just to actually specify how good receiving backs have been against the Raiders, in 7 games, the Raiders have allowed 66 targets and 45 receptions to the running back position. 9.4 targets per game and 6.4 receptions per game. Meanwhile, I mean, Jackson with Troy Maine Pope, who the fuck his name is, not playing in this game or doubtful for this game. He's the clear receiving back for the Los Angeles Chargers offense this week. I mean, he has 17 targets over the last 3 games. Is going up against a Raiders defense that just absolutely leaks points to the running back position, especially in the receiving game. I mean, this is such a home run type matchup for Justin Jackson. If he disappoints, I don't even know what to say anymore about fantasy football because this just seems like such a locked-in breakout type game for Justin Jackson for me.
Yeah, I mean, you said breakout type game. He's been good.
Yeah.
Like the game that he was bad, I don't even want to say bad because he still had like 6 targets and 5 rush attempts, which is like he didn't kill you in that game. But that game, he was dealing with an ankle injury, I believe, in practice, and he didn't practice much that week. He's been good. He has 6 and 5 targets over the last 3 weeks. Even in that game where he disappointed, he's basically Austin Eckler light. I've called him that before because Austin Eckler, and I fully believe this, if Austin Eckler had stayed healthy this season, he'd be a top 3 running back right now.
I would say top 5.
Like, I think he'd be where Alvin Kamara is on a weekly basis because that's how good Justin Herbert is playing. That's how good the offense is kind of moving. And everyone's biggest concern, I heard it from a number of huge fantasy analysts before this season, was this Chargers offense with Tyrod Taylor is going to be so garbage. We didn't really talk about it too much, but everyone, like, did anyone think Tyrod Taylor was playing 15 games? Like, no way was that going to happen. Even if Justin Herbert wasn't very good, I knew that was going to kind of balance itself out because you don't draft quarterbacks in the top 6 and make them sit the whole year. It just doesn't happen very often anymore. The fans get pissed off when they see boring football and they want to see their young kid sling the rock. So I totally agree on Justin Jackson. I think he's a locked and loaded top 15 running back. I don't want to say top 10, but I think he's a top 15 running back for sure. I'll get into these guys here just because they're in the same backfield. I have Ronald Jones 6 spots higher than consensus. Leonard Fournette 9 spots lower than consensus. Here's why I want to paint this to people who have Ronald Jones or Leonard Fournette on their team. Ronald Jones is Chris Carson from last year. That's what he is. If he doesn't make a mistake, meaning that he doesn't fumble or drop a pass, we're not going to see Fournette very much in that game. That's just how it's going to work. His floor is low, right? Like, obviously, right? Because if Ronald Jones fumbles, which he's not a big fumbler, he hasn't been a fumbler in his pro career, but if he drops a lot of passes or something, that's when you start seeing Leonard Fournette. And again, it's hard to predict when that's going to happen because it seems like Ronald Jones makes a lot of mistakes, and it seems like Bruce Arians hates him for some reason. But I think if he plays and doesn't make any mistakes, he's going to get 20 touches. That's just what's going to happen because he's still the number 1 back on this team. Bruce Arians has not come out and said, oh, we want to give the ball to Leonard more or anything like that. He just said he's the nickel back. Leonard Fournette has replaced Shady McCoy. That's all that's happened in the last couple of weeks. Sure, is Leonard Fournette a top 30 running back? Probably, but he's not a top 25 running back or top 20 running back. ahead of Ronald Jones, where he's ranked currently in ECR right now.
It's just ECR is so reactive to recency bias. It's insane. We're going to talk about the situation with the Bills after as well. But, man, it's just –
like Rojo rushed for 3 straight 100-yard games like 2 weeks ago, and everyone was touting Rojo as a top 12 running back after that.
As you mentioned, Ronald Jones is literally Chris Carson from last year, where he fumbles, he drops a pass, you're out of here. But if he doesn't do that, he's going to give you 15 points in a week. And it's just, that's basically his baseline.
This should be a higher scoring game for the Bucs too. And Rojo is the goal line back. Leonard Fournette might be fat and big and can fall into the end zone, but he is not the goal line back. He's only in there in like 2-minute drill situations. So, yeah. I mean, that would be the only time Leonard Fournette would get like a touchdown or whatever. But I think Rojo is good for like 70 rushing yards in this game and like a touchdown, maybe 2. And then that's like obviously good for like a 20-point game if he catches 2 or 3 passes as well.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that situation. We're going to talk about the Bills after as well. But briefly before we do that, I'm going to mention Melvin Gordon, who I have 4 spots higher than consensus. And this really doesn't have to do with Gordon himself, but more so just has to do with the overall running back landscape on the week because it gets messy after the top 15 or 16 backs. And, I mean, I'm just going to go with Gordon, who is one of the few backs with A, a guaranteed workload, B, receiving production, and C, a matchup that should score a ton of points overall. So I mentioned that I like Drew Lock. I do think that Melvin Gordon could catch a decent amount of passes in this game as well. So he's my RB17 on the week. ECR currently has him at, I believe, is 21 or 22.
He's pretty low in ECR. They're reacting pretty highly to Melvin Gordon ceding some work to Phillip Lindsay. But, I mean, Phillip Lindsay got 8 carries. It's like he ran a decent amount of routes, which is a little concerning because I thought kind of Gordon would have like a monopoly over that. But I still think Melvin Gordon is a top 20 running back pretty much each and every week until Phillip Lindsay proves me otherwise.
Yeah, no, I agree there.
One guy I want to touch on real quick too is I have Wayne Gallman 9 spots higher than consensus. This will probably adjust itself once ECR catches up with the news, but Freeman is out for this game. Devontae Freeman will not play, which should make Gallman the guy to play. Obviously, Alfred Morris is probably going to be involved to some capacity, but as I mentioned with Washington is initially at the beginning of the year, we thought this was going to be a pass funnel defense. It's been the exact opposite. It's way easier to run on this team than it is to pass on them because their corners have been playing outstanding and their pass rush is fierce, but they're not as good against the run, which is kind of surprising given the fact that they have Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne and all those guys up front. But we saw Gallman perform in a bad matchup against the Bucs, and I think he's like a desperation, like high-end RB3 if you need a guy this week.
Yeah, I'm a little bit lower on Gallman, and that's specifically due. I just don't want a part of the Giants rushing game back.
Obviously not. It's disgusting. But
yeah, no, I could fully agree with that sentiment.
Be there. That's the only reason I have him there.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. I'm going to talk about Dave Montgomery, who I have 3 spots lower than consensus. And I mean, he'll probably, again, finish in the RB like 12 to 16 type range. Just, I don't know, maybe fall into the end zone. But I mean, just don't watch the game for your own sanity if you actually like have him in your lineup because it's just not going to be fun to watch. He's a fine RB2, but gosh, it's just the upside in terms of week to week is just simply not there. It's non-existent. 6 of his 24 career games in the NFL have gone 15 plus point half PPR points, with only 3 of them going 20 plus. You know what he's going to get? He's going to get you 10 to 13, 14 points. It's not going to be pretty, but I just don't agree with consensus actually having him in the top 12 personally because I simply would never trust him as my RB1.
I have him at 12, so I guess we're going to disagree on that one. Sure. The reason I have that is because he's actually finished as the top 15 running back the last 2 weeks. So, I mean, I want to see him continue to do it because he's still not a good player. I understand he's not a good player, but as you mentioned, it gets pretty gross pretty fast at the running back position. Aside from like weekly guys like Chase Edmonds this week and like Gio Bernard last week, like guys that we could slot in there on a short time basis, like David Montgomery is probably in the top 10 in terms of guys that you can project volume to at the running back position. And again, I know it's gross volume and it's not pretty, but he is going to get you 12 to 13 points. And that for ECR's sake, for us ranking him, it helps our accuracy knowing that he's probably not going to be an RB 41 on the week or whatever, because he's going to get a solid amount of volume.
Like he's probably going to finish somewhere between where we both have him ranked. We just like, it's kind of a cop-out having him here because we know that he's probably going to finish here. Whereas like the other guys that we actually project for upside, like are so much riskier because of volume.
Oh yeah.
That makes sense. But yeah, that's just my thoughts. Who's your next guy?
Yeah, we touched on it earlier. Let's talk about the Bills backfield. I have Devin Singletary 5 spots higher than consensus and Zach Moss 5 spots lower. It's really not that I like Devin Singletary more than Zach Moss. It's that the community just completely overreacted to last week. Zach Moss is currently at 25 in ECR and Devin Singletary is at 30. First of all, Devin Singletary, Zach Moss played a season low in snaps last week. Yes, he got 2 touchdowns, but he's played a season low in snaps last week. Even with like Devin Singletary kind of struggling the past couple of weeks, he actually played well last week. They both kind of did, which is unfortunate for fantasy managers of each guy because you really still don't know what's going on in that backfield. But this is a huge pass funnel defense that they're going up against. And I think Zach Moss is going to struggle on the ground, and Singletary's role is the one in the passing game. So that's why I have him ranked higher this week. Again, next week it could change. I could have Zach Moss higher if the matchup says that the ground game is going to be more effective. But the Seahawks have been top 8 against the run per Football Outsiders DVOA, and I think Singletary is the one that actually benefits as more of the pass-catching running back.
Yeah, I agree there. I have Singletary 4 spots higher and Moss 6 spots lower, so we're kind of close there as well. The guy I'm going to mention, okay, Gus Edwards. I have him 8 spots higher than consensus. And I mean, I love J.K. Dobbins as much as anyone out there. But just pretending that Gus Bus doesn't exist is just so ignorant because ultimately he's going to be heavily involved with Ingram out. Again, we know what the Ravens are at this point. They are a committee. J.K. Dobbins isn't just going to take 20 to 25 touches just because he's the most talented back in the backfield.
His ceiling is like Aaron Jones level, like snap share and like touch baseline and stuff, and you just have to hope that he's as good as we think he is.
100%. And overall, people who are just saying, oh, Gus Edwards is not going to be involved, yada, 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 he's going to get 15 touches regardless in this game. I get it. The matchup is not ideal. The Colts are a good overall defense, but I mean, Edwards is just such an efficient overall back with great projected volume for Sunday. I mean, given this current RB landscape, he presents top 24 values to me. I have him currently as my RB 23. Consensus has him as their RB 31 on the week. I just think he's going to wildly outproduce that, especially if, again, he hits that 13 to 15 touch workload that I do expect him to hit.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And this is a bad matchup, but so was last week. The Steelers weren't a good matchup either. And they combined for like 200 yards rushing between those two backs. So I think there is going to be plenty of production to go around. And if they want to win this game, the Ravens, they're going to need to run the ball because, I mean, Lamar doesn't look good passing it. So you're going to need to get him involved in the run game, Lamar Jackson with J.K. Dobbins and all that stuff. That's the key to their offense right now because Lamar isn't able to pass at like a great level. And this is a good pass defense that they're playing against. So I think they're going to look to get both running backs involved pretty early in this one. Two guys that kind of go hand in hand because they both have the same type of coaching staff is DeAndre Swift and Damian Harris. I have 5 spots lower than consensus. Both kind of, obviously one is the Patriots and one's like a Patriots system. Did we forget that Matt Patricia and Josh McDaniels don't care about our fantasy teams? Like no Stafford for DeAndre Swift in this game, likely. And we saw Swift total 1 rushing yard on 6 carries last week. Yes, this matchup isn't the Colts that they went up last week and the game script should be better. But ECR having him at 17 is completely overambitious in my opinion. I don't think he even remotely deserves to be in the top 20 running backs. He is not a guy you can trust. He is a guy that you hope for on a week-over-week basis, and I think the same can be said for Damian Harris. Damian Harris played 31% of snaps last week, and would it shock any of us if he had 10 carries for 31 yards this week and Rex Burkhead had 2 touchdowns? No, because it's the Patriots backfield. They don't care about our fantasy teams. They're not just going to give Damian Harris 60% of snaps and 20 touches every week, regardless of how good he looks, because Burkhead always looks good for whatever reason. James White always has games where he looks good. Like, it's just a committee all the time. Stop thinking it's going to be anything other than that for the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I do have Swift 1 spot lower than consensus. Harris, I thought I'd be higher than him on in terms of consensus, but I actually have him the same. That's simply all due to game script. Again, would it be a shock if Rex Burkhead had like 12 carries, 45 yards, and 2 touchdowns? Like, I wouldn't be shocked by that. But I mean, if you're projecting it, okay, I understand that. I agree with you. I'm going to mention James White afterwards because I do think he's the back, if you will, that probably has the safest role on the team or out of that committee. But it's just a mess of a situation. It's nothing that I
disagree. I think Harris has the safest role in the committee now.
That's fair. I have Harris.
With James White, he had the safest role in the committee when Tom Brady was there. Cam Newton isn't using him as much as Tom Brady used to. So I do
Sure.
think Harris is the back to play if you're going to play
Yeah.
a Patriots running
Oh,
back, but
I have Harris ranked the
let's not
highest.
pretend he's doesn't come with risk.
Don't get me wrong. I have Harris ranked the highest. I just think that, like, in terms of what should we expect from each back, like, we want Harris to get 18, 20 touches, but it's just simply not a guarantee. I think James White can get you 4 or 5 targets every week. And, like, that's kind of, I don't know.
But the problem with James White is that he's either going to get like 85 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns, or he's going to get 4 catches for 21 yards and no touchdowns and like 1 carry for -3 yards. Like,
that's fair. Let's go into the next one. It's not a quote-unquote shitty running back as we see with the Patriots. It's going to be a guy that is a great running back in real life, but he's just in the worst situation of all time. Has not looked like the same player. Is a guy that I actually is on my favorite team, and that's going to be Ezekiel Elliott. I have 2 spots lower than consensus. With Dak out, I mean, Zeke has just become a sexier version of David Montgomery, if you will. Like, he's a sexier name, sexier team. I get that. But they're both the same player in terms of their overall usage, in terms of their overall upside, if you will, on a week-to-week basis. They are a workhorse running back on a shitty offense with the lack of scoring opportunities. That's what both of them are. Mid RB2s, maybe? Ezekiel Elliott does not have that top 5 upside that we wanted to see him going into the season because, again, that whole situation around him has crumbled. It's not noteworthy that I have him 2 spots lower than consensus. I just kind of want to highlight what a fall from grace we saw from Zeke this year compared to last year, compared to expectations we had. We had him as a top 3, top 4 running back across the industry and one of the safest picks in your entire fantasy football drafts. I mean, the situation around him is just absolutely shambles now. Dak going out made that offense go from 32 points per game to 7. 7. Like, it's just a mess. Don't start him with confidence. If you have to start him due to workload, I understand that. Again, a la David Montgomery. Just don't expect a 20, 25-point week as we're accustomed to seeing from Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah, like you mentioned, that's a huge drop-off. Like, the Giants score more points than that. Are we excited to start any running backs on the Giants? No, because – but Zeke Elliott, as you mentioned, is a huge name. He's obviously more talented than any of the running backs that the Giants have. But, I mean, he's not playing well himself. So I definitely agree with that. Is that good for running backs? You want to move on to receivers here?
I'll just quickly, absolutely quickly mention 2 more. That's going to be Le'Veon Bell. Has nothing really to do with the actual Clyde. Again, I have Clyde a little bit higher than consensus. It just has everything to do with what a smash matchup that the Chiefs have this week on the ground against the Panthers.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
There's such a run funnel defense. It just wouldn't be a shock to me if both CH and Bell smashed in this game. Like, I can see Bell having 10 touches, 65 total yards, and maybe a touchdown or 2 in this game, and ultimately returning you top 25 value. And then,
I disagree. I think this is the Clyde game, man. I think everyone's down on Clyde, and Clyde's going to come out and shut everyone up.
I hope so. I have him at, I believe, 9 or 10 this week. So I have Clyde at 10, which is, right around consensus. So I definitely agree with you there. I do think Clyde's going to smash. I just think it could be both of them. And again, briefly,
if James White, by the way, if Clyde doesn't smash, then I'm worried.
Yeah. And I'm going to quickly mention James White. I have him 8 spots higher than consensus at 28, I believe, right now. And that really has nothing to do with the player himself. Again, I mentioned his role is quote-unquote secured, but the landscape is just such a fucking mess that hopefully you own 3 top 24 running backs or top 20 running backs on the week, because otherwise you're kind of fucking screwed.
Pretty much.
Yeah, let's go into receivers so you can kick this off, and let's try to get through these a little quicker.
Yeah, I'll get through these ones faster. This one I can kind of breeze through because I already talked about him. Jerry Jeudy, I have 6 spots higher than consensus. He's going against the Atlanta Falcons. He had great target volume without Patrick last week. Patrick should be back for this one, but he hasn't practiced all week, and he's questionable for this game, so he's not for sure playing. I think this is the Jerry Jeudy breakout game. I talked about it already. One more guy I just want to talk about real fast. You'll know this guy too. He went a couple picks after Jerry Jeudy in the NFL draft this past year. CeeDee Lamb, +9 on consensus right now. It's a tough matchup for Gilbert or Rush or whoever ends up playing quarterback for the Cowboys, but both of those guys are miles better than Ben DiNucci. That is not an NFL caliber quarterback. No. As you can tell, he missed easy ass throws. My flag football team can hit throws better than Ben DiNucci. And Lamb being the chain mover of this offense and being the guy that gets more low ADOT type targets could result in him being heavily targeted in a matchup where they're going against such a great pass rush.
I don't know if Ben DiNucci is a CFL caliber quarterback.
Oh, he probably isn't, man. He probably would get cut in the fucking XFL. And I'm pretty sure Garrett Gilbert was the MVP of the AAF before it got shut down.
I don't even think Ben DiNucci realistically can start in a top 25 program right now. Anyways,
Well, I
let's get
mean,
off.
he got what happened to him at Pitt anyway?
I don't even fucking know. I just remember that looked okay, James Madison, but again, it was fucking James Madison.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
just a fucking mess. Anyways, we'll get into Will Fuller. I have him 3 spots lower. And again, this doesn't really have much to do with Fuller. I love Fuller, the player. I
How
mean,
can you
this
possibly have Will Fuller lower then? And that's all. I actually like Will Fuller is in such a great spot. I might move
No,
him up.
I get that. I have 3 spots lower, and that's just simply to do with the overall. I don't want to I mean, I'm going to say it. The split between him and Brandon Cooks. I mean, they're just so identical since Cooks came back from injury. If you actually break down the numbers, this is for Fuller, okay? 27 targets, 13 receptions, 216 yards, and 3 touchdowns across these past 3 games. While Brandon Cooks, 30 targets, 24 receptions, 289 yards, and 2 touchdowns across these last 2 games. I think it's just more of they're both close to each other rather than Fuller being a top.
Okay, that's all well and
back.
good, but give me both of them, man. Like in this game,
I have Fuller at 16 and Cooks at 19. Like, I still think both are going to do well. I just don't really see a world where Fuller can be top 12 while Cooks is being top 19, if that makes sense.
yeah, I think there is a world like that. I think Deshaun Watson throws 4 touchdowns in this game at least.
Hope so. I have him in one of my leagues, so.
I hope so too, because I have a feeling I'm going to sit him for Tom Brady. He's going to get 16 points, and Tom Brady's going to have 39.
Hopefully, for your sake.
Hopefully not. One guy I want to get into another. This is the same matchup that we kind of just talked about, but I have Deontay Johnson 4 spots higher than consensus. Dallas can't stop a nosebleed, and me being higher on him seems to be kind of an overreaction for some of the industry because he keeps leaving games with injuries. Like, you can't predict that. Obviously, it sucks that Deontay Johnson goes into your lineup and you think you can start him, and then he leaves halfway through the game with like a concussion or a hamstring injury or whatever. But I think people being lower on him is they're kind of ignoring the fact that when he is on the field, he's the number 1 target in this offense.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you there. I have Deontay Johnson a couple spots higher, I believe, as well. I'm going to talk about this one pains me, but Terry McLaurin, I have 7 spots lower, and that doesn't have anything to do with Terry McLaurin, the player. Nothing to do with the player.
If you're going to cite James Bradbury, man, they didn't use Bradbury and shadow coverage on him first time.
I don't know.
Okay. So what happened? I talked about this on the Start Sit show. They had, I think it was like 2 of Terry McLaurin's targets were against James Bradbury, but they moved him around so that he would be away from Bradbury. So I think they're going to do their best to not have that happen because they know Terry's their best receiver.
That's fair. I mean,
I don't think they're just going to be like, oh, fuck, I guess you're stuck on James Bradbury. We'll like just try and beat him. Like, no, they're going to get him off of him.
That's fair. I mean, to be fair, he's also at the ECR 10. I'm not completely disrespecting the guy. I have him at 17. And that's just simply to do with the fact that Bradbury's going to be on him for a decent portion of this game regardless. Even if he doesn't, quote-unquote, shadow him, I just don't see a way where the Giants don't fucking let him cover the best receiver on the opposite team, if that makes sense. So, yeah. 17 to me is a perfectly fine spot. I just don't think that 10 is realistically like his value for the
league. I have
him
a bit lower than consensus as well because I like a lot of the other guys instead. Yeah. But I agree. Like he's gonna see some of Bradbury. Probably see like 50% of his routes on Bradbury. Yeah. But I think when he's not on Bradbury is when he's getting his targets.
Again, yeah.
That proved to be the case in the first matchup.
It's not like I have him at like 22, 23. He's still at 17. He's still a respectable mid wide receiver 2 for me on the week. But realistically, like looking at the guys straight above him, Will Fuller, Mike Evans, Robbie Anderson, Michael Thomas, A.J. Brown, Allen Robinson. I would take Terry over Mike Evans. Interesting. Might have to put a little something on that this week.
Well, Mike Evans against Lattimore is usually not usually that fruitful. That's why I would take it. And it's kind of funny, Bradbury being the other corner that Mike Evans struggles against, but he actually did pretty well against him. Speaking of Mike Evans, I want to just talk about 3 receivers who I have way higher than consensus, but that's because of injury reasons. I have Chris Godwin, like way higher than consensus, Michael Thomas, same thing, and Calvin Ridley. All 3 of these guys are probably due for upticks in their ECR. They're entering the game with questionable designations. As I mentioned, Chris Godwin is probably going to play, according to Bruce Arians. I would expect the same from Michael Thomas. And Calvin Ridley, I feel like, is the most in doubt of those 3 guys for me because they have a bye after this week. And a midfoot, I think he has a midfoot sprain or something like that, or an AC, something. I can't even remember what it's called. But either way, Calvin Ridley's injury is projected to be like a 2 to 3 week thing. So he only had like 10 days to recover from it. We'll see if he plays. I think all 3 of these guys are going to play, though, if I had to guess, because they're listed as questionable, which usually means likely to play.
Yeah.
And I think all three of them are. I think I have Godwin at like 26, though. I have him a bit lower than he would normally be, but Michael Thomas and Ridley are generally where they should be in terms
Agree.
of
I,
if they're
I
healthy.
I currently have Ridley at 9 and Thomas at 13. So
I have Ridley. I think I have Ridley at 9 and Thomas at 11. So
yeah,
I'm like right
there you
there.
go. Talking about the next guy, I'm just going to quickly mention is DJ Moore. We both have lower than consensus. I have him 6 spots
Yep.
lower. How much lower do you have him?
I have him 7.
Okay. I mean, guys, I understand. I am like one of the biggest proponents of DJ Moore being such a talented NFL wide receiver. But I mean, his week-to-week volume is so volatile. Robbie Anderson is the wide receiver 1 in this offense. Can we just admit that at this point? Like, why do we have to pretend like it's still DJ Moore? It's Robbie Anderson.
And let's stop pretending like this is an offense that's going to yield 2 top 20 receivers too.
Yeah, I mean, like we just mentioned it with freaking the Texans having 2 top 19 options. The Panthers offense is just not at that level. Like, let's just stop pretending this.
They're
He's
solid.
good.
Like DJ Moore, he belongs in wide receiver 3 territory. He's the definition of a wide receiver 3, in my opinion. I think he belongs with guys like CeeDee Lamb, like Mike Williams, like guys like that is where DJ Moore belongs because he is boomer bust. He's been a big play guy who is not getting a lot of targets. He's getting like 5, 6, 7, 6 targets per week. He had 2 big target games this whole season, and the rest of the time he's getting low targets and he's capitalizing on big plays. Is he good at them? And because he's a great receiver, yeah, but you can't rely on him as a top 17 option or wherever he's ranked right now, ahead of guys that are much safer in terms of volume. He's ahead of a guy like Deontay Johnson, who when he's been on the field has gotten way more volume than we've seen from a guy like DJ Moore. He's ahead of a guy like Amari Cooper, who even though his quarterback is terrible, especially once Andy Dalton comes back, we know Amari Cooper is guaranteed like 8 targets minimum per game.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. So who's another guy that you have?
I'll run through a couple of these guys real fast because they're all kind of just in the same category. They all kind of go with DJ Moore, who we just mentioned. Marvin Jones, it's strictly because of Stafford why I have him lower, to be honest. Like if Matt Stafford's not playing, he's going to be significantly lower. Plus no Golladay on the other side of the field to draw attention. That's no bueno. Mike Williams, I have 8 spots lower than consensus. A little shocked to see him as high as he is, to be honest. He's like DJ Moore. He's boomer bust, wide receiver 3, not a wide receiver 2. I know he had a great game last week, but he's still not like a consistent guy. And there's other options in that offense that usually take precedent in terms of targets. Hunter Henry didn't get really involved last week, which kind of like, that's just kind of how it's going to work. Behind Keenan Allen, it's either going to be Hunter Henry or Mike Williams. I don't think it's going to be Mike Williams every game going forward. I think Mike Williams is kind of up and down, and we got to treat him that way. And ranking him at 24 just seemed a little too high for me.
Yeah, I fully agree. Again, Marvin Jones, he had 3 catches, 39 yards, and 2 touchdowns last week, okay? Let's not pretend like it was a huge volume week with Kenny Golladay going out. He had a good fantasy week because of those touchdowns. Now, we've seen it. Objectively, he's been worse with Kenny Golladay off the field. Objective, like this is statistically proven. He's been a worse receiver on a points.
Plus, the offense goes from like a top 15 passing offense to like a
bottom 8.
10.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I mean, Kenny Golladay is that good of a player. Marvin Jones is more of a sidekick rather than an alpha type receiver, and he's going to, again, because of volume, he's going to be top 30 or so in my rankings. But ECR 25 or 26, wherever they have him ahead of some of those receivers, is just too much in my opinion. And I'm going to talk about Chase Claypool again. I have him 6 spots lower than consensus. I understand he's got the worst matchup on the field. LOL, because it's still a good matchup because it's the Cowboys. But I mean, this is just a situation where I do think that all of these Pittsburgh receivers in him, Deontay Johnson, and Juju Smith-Schuster are all going to be top 24 options, but are all going to eat into each other's upside.
Like 1 or 2 of them is going to bust. It's just what's going to happen.
100%. Gonna say that on the flip side of the matchup, you mentioned CeeDee Lamb. I also have him 7 spots higher than consensus. He does have the best matchup on the field, according to PFF, playing against Cameron Sutton in the slot. And this should just be a positive game script situation for the Cowboys passing offense. They should be down early, down big. I mean, CeeDee Lamb should catch a ton of quote-unquote garbage time type production in this game.
Yeah. And 2 more guys that I'm lower on than consensus. They're both kind of the same type of receiver. I have Hollywood Brown 13 spots lower than consensus and DJ Chark 10 spots lower than consensus. And the reason for Hollywood Brown, I mentioned it when I talked about Lamar. He's not going to have time to throw to this guy. Like he's a downfield threat. He's not been getting him the ball as of late. If you've seen some of the cut-ups of Marquise Brown getting missed on long throws, this is a game where Lamar Jackson, without his left tackle, is not going to have time to throw. They're going to have to run the ball to win this game. So I don't think Hollywood Brown gets a whole lot of volume in this game. And if he does, this is not a defense that generally allows a lot of big plays. And then DJ Chark, rinse and repeat, kind of the same arguments for Marvin Jones. He doesn't have Gardner Minshew in this game. The usage of Chark has fallen off, along with his quarterback play. We'll see how Jake Luton does, but there's like maybe a 5% chance that Jake Luton plays better than Gardner Minshew. If that happens, I guess I'll bite the bullet, but I don't think Jake Lutton's going to get much of anything going in this game.
Yeah, I fully agree. I have both those guys as well. For Marquise Brown, I have him 14 spots over the consensus.
Yeah,
this is all. This is all I have written here. LOL, ECR, wide receiver 21. It's just so idiotic.
That's way too high.
It's so idiotic. I'll choose not to address it. I mean, he's what, the wide receiver 43 in terms of half PPR on the season. You want to rank him as a top 22 option? Like, get the fuck out of here.
Like 2 games this season where he's been a wide receiver 2 or better.
Like, it's insane. And as you mentioned, DJ Chark, I mean, I love him as a player, but he just has no business being in the top 30 given the level of play and the consistency of play we've seen from him this year. There's a quarterback change. I would rather wait and see what he does with Jake Luton before I ultimately rank him as the ECR 26. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, dude, this is a guy that people are going to drop if he does bad this week.
Yeah. And yet ECR has him as a top 26 option.
Yeah.
And before we quickly get into the tight end position, going to mention 2 guys quickly. Pretty simple. Corey Davis, -4 spots. The matchup versus Kyle Fuller is not ideal. And if you're actually talking about Kyle Fuller's brother, Darius Slayton, -6 spots. He's going up against Kendall Fuller and the Washington football team secondary. Yeah, or cousins.
Well, I don't know why I never put that together.
I think they're brothers, yeah. They're either brothers or cousins. I think they're brothers. And
I'm also, sure you're right, but I don't know why I never put that together.
Also, I think it was Corey Fuller as well. There was another Fuller that was like their brother as well. Like there's 3 brothers, maybe cousin. But yeah, you're talking about it again. You got Kyle Fuller on one side locking down Corey Davis, and you got the other side being Darius Slayton. Kendall Fuller has been one of the top cornerbacks in terms of Pro Football Focus this season. Washington football team secondary is number 1.
He's allowing like a 9.6 passer rating on when he's targeted, which is ridiculous.
And Washington football team secondary as a whole has given up the fewest points to the wide receiver position on the year. So Darius Slayton, 6 spots lower. He's a volatile receiver as it is, and he has a bad matchup. It's just not a guy I want to put in my lineup.
Yeah, they've actually played some good receivers too. Like they shut down the Rams guys. They shut down a number of other matchups where they've played some good receivers. They're just not surrendering anything. Like their pass rush is getting home. Their corners are locking up. Like it's ridiculous. I did not expect to see that from the Washington football team. And if they can figure out their offense, get a decent quarterback next year, I think they're going to be a good team.
They're winning the division this year. I'm going to tell you that right now.
They're
winning the division. Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's fucked up, right?
They're going to win themselves right out of Justin Fields.
Yeah. No, that would be such a Washington thing to do. But
anyways. They'll sign Jameis Winston. It's fine. Dude, if Jameis Winston was their quarterback, they'd easily win the division.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Let's get into the tight end position. Again, just quickly go through these guys. Not really much here, but it's a couple guys we have pretty big discrepancies from ECR.
Yeah. Here's what we're going to do. I'll go through all the guys I'm higher on, then you go through all the guys you're higher on. So we'll get through these pretty fast. So Johnny Smith talked about it on the Start Sit show. Johnny ran his usual allotment of snaps after being limited the previous 2 weeks because he was injured and coming off of injury. And everyone's down on him now like he's some bum and he's not going to have he's allowed to have a bad game. Not all tight ends are going to be Travis Kelce. And even Travis Kelce has bad games from time to time. He's not a high volume tight end either. He's more like Mark Andrews or Eric Ebron a couple of years ago. Like he's a guy that needs touchdowns and big plays to be really good. So I think Johnny Smith is a guy that you still need to fire up as a top 8 tight end as much as you might be a little hesitant to do so. Jared Cook, bad matchup for the wide receivers in this game, going up against the Bucs corners with Carlton Davis shadowing Michael Thomas. I think Jared Cook is likely to get a touchdown and some targets this week, and he's done well against the Bucs every game that he's been a Saint in this offense. And I think Eric Ebron also is in a great matchup. +4, I have him on ECR. Cowboys matchup and a consistent target share every game seems to be a pretty good recipe for Eric Ebron.
Yeah, I fully agree. Again, you kind of went over a lot of the guys I was higher on. Just quickly, one that may be different. Let me just check. The big one actually happened on Thursday night, and I'll already take the L on that. Y'all can fucking roast me in the comments.
I had Jordan Reed higher than consensus too. Not as high as you had him, but I had him higher than consensus. And then one other guy, sorry, I forgot to mention, is Irv Smith. I actually have 7 spots higher than consensus. The Vikings threw the ball 14 times last week, guys. Like I already talked about it. but Irv Smith still ran 89% of the routes that on Cousins' dropbacks, and the big game is coming for him. I'm telling you right now, the way he's being used, his usage is increasing every single week. Get ahead of the curve. Go like stash him in your league. If you don't need a tight end right now, maybe you have someone going on bye in a couple weeks, stash him in your league right now because he is going to go off at some point. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah, definitely fair. Gonna talk about, again, I don't have a lot of guys that are uniquely higher on, but I'll go over the guys I'm lower on. And the first one's going to be Rob Gronkowski. I have 5 spots lower than consensus. Nothing to do with the player himself. It's just, again, Godwin is back. Antonio Brown is playing. I just kind of want to see how the volume role is going to be distributed for him now that he has a lot more congestion in the middle of the field for the Bucs passing offense. Going to mention Hunter Henry. I mean, I have him 6 spots lower than consensus. To me, he's overrated. I mean, he has no games over 40 receiving yards and only 1 touchdown since week 3. Why are we still ranking him as like a top 7 option every week? He just hasn't proven to be that guy since Justin Herbert took over. And then finally, Hayden Hurst, again, 4 spots lower. But to me, this is a tier break between him and it would be, Hunter Henry. I just view it as a tier break at this point. I like him. It's just there's some other options I prefer. But the main one, I just don't understand Hunter Henry. Like, what does he provide you that realistically is like greater than a lot of these streaming tight ends? He's my tight end 13 on the week. I don't see it.
He's been a target guy like Evan Ingram, except he's like has a good quarterback throwing him the ball, and he's in a relatively good offense. My dog's making an appearance right now.
You're good.
Yeah, so I'm kind of with you on Hunter Henry. I think he is a little bit overrated. People are overrating him a little bit, and probably myself included. A couple guys that I'm lower on, I have Noah Fant, 4 spots lower than consensus. It's not that I don't like him this week. I just think there's a few guys I like better. Plus, I think Albert O is starting to kind of eat into his workload a little bit. Evan Ingram, he's Jason Witten 2.0 right now. He has the 3rd most targets at the tight end position and is currently outside the top like 15 or 20 in points per game. He can't go up in targets right now. Like his target ceiling is what's happening right now. He's getting absolutely peppered, and this is what we're seeing.
Yeah, it's a mess. And you briefly mentioned Albert O. I actually have Noah Fant, 1 spot higher than consensus, but I have Albert O 5 spots higher. And again, as you mentioned,
I have him higher too.
I have Albert O 5 spots higher because he's looked good. He's looked efficient. I'm just curious to see how he kind of progresses in this offense. Again, this is an offense that we could see 2 relevant tight end options. Obviously, Noah Fant's going to give you that top 8 week-to-week type upside, even top 5 upside on given weeks. But I do think Albert O can give you mid-tight end 2 type value rest of the season if he continues to develop that target floor and rapport with Drew Lock. So, 5 spots higher. It's a messy position. If you could maybe stash Albert O, and especially in a dynasty league, I would definitely be intrigued by that.
Yeah, especially Fant's been banged up so far this season too.
Yeah.
I think now that Albert O's starting to establish himself, if Fant misses any more time, then Albert O's going to actually get more involved. And again, Trey Burton, I'm 4 spots lower than consensus because I'm not a believer. He got fucking lucky last week. He had a wildcat touchdown.
Yeah, it won me my bet against you. But I'm lower on Burton this week as well too. I mean, there's like nothing to be excited about on the Colts offense, period, to be quite honest.
Yeah,
I don't know how.
That's probably gonna do it for us, right?
Yeah.
Do you have anyone else you need to talk about?
Nothing here. We pretty much went over all of it. But yeah, I'm just gonna quickly say, if you guys have made it this far in the video and you've enjoyed the content, make sure you go hit that like button. Comment down below what you think of our rankings, what you think of ECR rankings, where you personally have them ranked. Heck, I don't give a fuck. You guys think what you want to see happen in the game. If you say, oh, I want Noah Fant to be the tight end 1 this week, I want Justin Herbert to be the quarterback 1 on this week. Go ham in the comment section. Just have fun. It's football. Sunday's coming up. We saw a mauling of a Thursday night game. Hopefully we see some more exciting football for Sunday. And
we will, because it's hashtag fuck the Saints week.
Big facts. And yeah, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We are on that road to 2.1K. Hopefully 3K soon again if don't want to toot our own horns. But hopefully you enjoy the content. We'll see you guys again every Saturday for this video. I'm Danny. He's Bush. Peace out.